I think beauty for many people is it emanates from people. It's not necessarily looks per se, but something that people exude. Um, you know, people can have beautiful skin, beautiful physiques, that sort of thing. But for me, beauty is eternal, and I think it gets shared with people when you feel really good about yourself.
Welcome to the Beauty Talk podcast, where we feature how the best medical practitioners help their patients to look better, younger, and healthier. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Beauty Talk. We feature the top medical practitioners in health and beauty, both inside and out. I have Aimee Aquitania, makeup artist turned ICU RN and aesthetic RN who became an NP and started a mobile IV business after COVID. She built a wellness and aesthetic company that focuses on preventative more than reactive medicine and puts a new meaning to regenerative medicine. So Aimee, welcome and glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, let's start at the very top. How did you first get interested in the medical field?
So I've always been a little bit of a science geek, fascinated. I would actually watch like surgeries on TVs and stuff when I was quite young. My mom was like, I don't know if you should be watching this. And I was just incredibly fascinated. So like PBS and anything sciencey, I was just had a microscope at 9 years old. I just was really, really a science geek. And so I actually thought I was originally going to be a doctor. But I didn't really love their work-life balance. And ended up exactly where I'm supposed to be. I just took kind of I think a little bit of a longer route.
Mhm. Okay. So how did you actually make that transition then into the aesthetics and to the wellness side then?
So I became an esthetician when I was still doing makeup and working in the cosmetic industry. And then, being the science geek that I am, I was like, I really feel like I want to be able to do more for my skin clients. And that's kind of where I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into nursing. And so started taking prerequisites. Organic chemistry almost killed me. But other than that, I really loved school and learning new things. That's another thing that's, you know, always in wellness and in science, things are always evolving and things are always changing. So it's never a dull moment. You don't want to be in this industry unless you're always really wanting to learn.
Okay. So then what led you to decide to start your own business? I mean, why not just work for another practice?
I actually worked for a fun practice, intermittently throughout, being my ICU work and that sort of thing. But I kind of wanted to do something different. No one was really in the wellness space. Aesthetics is huge, and I do love that. But I think we're the best aging generation that we've ever seen, if that makes sense. And on two different levels, not only the cosmetic level, but we're learning about aging and the disease of aging so much better than we ever have, from peptides to preventative, things like Botox and that sort of thing. So I really just, wanted to do something a little different, and no one was doing kind of what my vision was for, wellness and longevity medicine. So I decided, well, I've got my NP. I'm going to do it on my own.
Awesome. That's one way of doing it. Okay, so now that you have this business, I want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the treatments that you offer. I want to start with the hydrogen IV. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
So I'm obsessed with a hydrogen IV. So as you know, hydrogen we make in our bodies and we need it, right? We mostly produce it here in our gut, actually, and our gut is like our second brain. And hydrogen is a selective antioxidant. So when it goes into the body, it neutralizes free radicals that are not good for us, but will leave anything else that our body needs. So it basically is the best thing for anti-aging that we have seen that will not have any side effects. You can't be allergic to it. When we put it in the IVs, there's no one can have any issues for it. However, my patients really notice that they have energy afterwards. There's been a ton of science behind like high dose vitamin C with hydrogen as a anti-cancer protocol from stage 4. The machine that I use, which was produced in Japan by Doctor's Man, there's a lot of science behind this on how it can be anti-cancer, anti-aging, and as well help with recovery, such as recovery from, achy joints, lactic acid buildup, and just brain fog. So we've had great benefits from our patients, and it doesn't take any longer for your IV. And it's just a quick additive that we do here in the office, and it does amazing things.
Okay. Now I've heard things about like hydrogen water and things like that. So is that kind of similar in that sense?
So it's similar in the sense, and I do think and praise hydrogen water. However, there's some really bad products out there that can actually do more damage than good when you're making hydrogen water. But when you put this parenterally right into the vein, it goes right into the system. So think about it as, you're bypassing the gut in the same instance, is that it's going right into your bloodstream to kind of like give you that charge. And so most people, again, if I do something what's called a Pico IV, which is my CBD IV, some people get, really relaxed and calm, and they're like, I still have half my day. I need to have some energy. And so I'll just add, my hydrogen IV to that. And that just gives them that kind of pep. And it's not, a B complex. It's not, glutathione. It's literally just the hydrogen. And it does the trick for counteracting, maybe a magnesium IV or something when people are like, I'm tired, I'm sleepy.
Okay. So you talked a lot about the benefits of it. Is there a certain situation or condition people need to be in to really get the most benefit out of hydrogen, or is it really just anyone can do it?
That's a great question. So I think people that are really suffering from things like chronic fatigue syndrome, any type of chronic disease, ulcerative colitis, IBS, they can really benefit tremendously and feel the difference right away. People that are already doing things, biohacking with red light, cold plunge, all the things, may not notice it as much because they're already optimizing their body, right?
Mm.
But I think anybody can benefit from it due to the antioxidant, benefits of it, as well as, energy and recovery.
Okay. Now, when it comes to how often you can do it, is it you do it once a week, every day? Like how often should you be
I
doing
I do have patients that do it once a week, and they really see the benefit. There's another machine that, obviously you can drink the water, inhale the hydrogen as well.
it?
And then, of course, you can do it through via IV. But, depending on what you're treating, again, when I'm looking at, an anti-cancer patient, I'm doing high dose vitamin C with a hydration, inhalation. You can even bathe in hydrogen water. And because our skin's our biggest organ, it does absorb that too. So there's a lot of incredible things that, hydrogen can help with.
Okay. And how long do people need to take this before they start seeing the benefits?
So most people will see a benefit after their first treatment.
Oh.
But if we are dealing with something that's chronic cancer, that sort of thing, you're going to need a protocol, 6 to 8 weeks minimum. And again, it kind of really just depends on what we are treating specifically. But yeah, I think more or less people, as long as they're doing other things along with it, have incredible results.
Okay, got it. Now, I want to shift over to a different treatment, Ativa. Could you
Uh,
talk a little bit more about Ativa?
So Ativa, came to us from Europe. The Europeans really kind of are ahead of the game a lot of times when it comes to, technology or different things. And so it is a cannula, and the cannula is based on where I'm treating, either on the face or on the body. And the cannula is inserted underneath the skin, and it delivers radio frequency. That radio frequency then heats up the skin, usually anywhere around 42 centigrade, up to maybe 45, depending on where I'm treating. And that heat actually causes immediate tightening in the skin, but also neocollagenesis. So when you use this technology, you see it right away, but then the results actually get better about 2 to 3 months down the line and get better with time. Just like any type of radio frequency treatment, usually it's good to do, 2 or 3 treatments about 6 to 8 weeks apart to get the best benefit. But my patients love that you can see something right away, but
Mhm.
then also get those benefits as it goes along. I did have one patient. She's like, I don't really know if I saw any difference, and it was about 3 weeks, or excuse me, 3 months later. And I'm like, let me do your after pictures really quick, and then she's like, oh, that does look a lot better, and of course, it happened to be the neck and the jawline, which I think every woman, this is like their area of, I want this, snatch jawline and, tighter neck. And she really was like, oh, well, this is also why we do before and after photos too. But yeah, it was really nice. And there's no downtime, which is really great. Sometimes there's a little, area where we insert the cannula, possibly some bruising, but there is really no downtime. So we're not talking about, you look like ground beef when you're done, or your whole face looks like it's falling off, with like a CO2 or something. So it's very well tolerated. We numb the pilot hole, we'll numb the face, and it's a great procedure.
Okay. I'm sure you get this question a lot. Is it painful?
So some people, of course, are more sensitive than others. I've never had anybody stop the procedure because of pain. Again, 1% lidocaine with epi at the pilot hole, but then we also do a topical about 40 minutes before. So it does make it comfortable. Now, when the cannula is going through the skin, it glides actually pretty easily. But what you're also noticing is the RF. So sometimes when the RF like will glide over, say, a nerve or something, some people get little zingers if and it's quick and it's fleeting, but it can be shocking sometimes to the patient.
Okay. Now, with the RF, the radio frequency, could you explain a little bit more about what that is? Because I've heard some things like you that have RF, some that don't have RF, but like really, what is the RF part of it? Like, what does it do? What's the benefit of it?
So radio frequency is what basically is used in the dermis along with the water cells in the body, and they heat them up. So again, you can be at a safe level within the dermis of that heat, and it doesn't produce pain like it would if that heat was on top of the skin. So if you're inside the skin, what that does is the heat and that water moving and the water molecules, that's what causes the neocollagenesis. That's what causes the controlled trauma in that dermal area to create new collagen elastin. And that's also what causes the tightening too. Mm-hmm. So again, you're using what they call controlled trauma, as the radio frequency does that in that plane. So you have to be careful and know where you're in. Obviously, you don't want to be well below, the adipose tissue. You really want to be right up top in that layer, and that cannula should glide really nicely. I also do threads in the office well before I did Ativa. So you really got to know where you're placing these to really get the best benefit.
Got it.
And then, we use Morpheus, which also does, radio frequency as well. And same thing. And actually I did a Morpheus Monday. And, you don't look like ground beef, but you're getting a lot of radio frequency into the tissues. And that's what causes the tightening, is getting those 24 karat plates into that dermal area with that energy, and then heating it up and coming out, heating it up, coming out. So it's a great treatment. It's an awesome technology for low downtime and a non-ablative procedure.
Okay, got it. So now when it comes to the treatments that you provide, what are some of the most common misconceptions or myths that you hear from your clients about these treatments?
Morpheus is actually the biggest one. A lot of people are like, oh, it melts fat, you can't use it, you're going to have, the Ozempic face or whatever, because of it. And it's really all about the provider knowing the settings and where you're applying those settings. If you are really trying to remodel the face, or, get rid of some buccal fat, or submentum fat, those are the two places, a lot of people want to get rid of some fat. You really need to go much deeper into the dermal layer, almost to the adipose tissue, and you really go high in your joules or your energy. But if you're doing skin tightening, which that's what most of us want, you're actually going to be staying pretty shallow in the dermis, as well as your heat is not going to be too high. So you're really just going to target that area of the skin to really stimulate the fibroblasts in the dermal area. So that's where you're going to cause all that tightening, is where that collagen elastin is actually being produced.
Okay, good to know. Now, let's say that somebody is looking to get some type of aesthetic treatment or aesthetic procedure done, but they don't know any providers. What advice would you give to them as they're doing their search, so that they can find someone that has the knowledge, the experience, and basically get them a good result in the end?
So I'm going to say, look for anybody that you would appreciate those type of results. If you are looking for somebody who's super natural and you want really natural results, look for that type of injector or aesthetic provider. I have people that, look at me and they're like, oh, you look so natural. I'm like, yeah, I mean, but I've done Botox, I've done fillers, I've had threads done, obviously the Morpheus, and, just about everything underneath the sun. However, I have a very natural approach with my patients, and most of my patients, that's what they want too. So, first of all, look for somebody who you like their aesthetic, what they look like. Then I would look at their history. How long have they been injecting? How long have they owned their business? I mean, I was injecting, oh gosh, I think over 5-7 years before I had my practice. So I had a long time in with other providers, other senior providers, and I think that is also key. You may know about, these companies that, provide, Botox to your house, as, an RN. I'm like, it really scares me that RNs can just go out and go to a house if you've never worked in a clinic yet. Like, so I would definitely make sure, especially if you're brand new to aesthetics and in that pieces, go to an established clinic, an established provider that, has got, a good 5 to 7 years under their belt. I feel like that's a really good number to learn some things, learn from some of their mistakes, or learn from other people's mistakes, within the clinic, because it's always a learning experience when you're around other people. But if you're solo, right from the bat, I just don't know how much you're going to learn. I mean, you're definitely going to have some challenges, but I think the best thing is, surrounding yourself with people. And then also the best referral, ask your girlfriend, ask, your buddy, and be like, who do you go to? Do you have somebody? Some of, I mean, 90% of my clients are referral based. Wow. Because, they like what they see. They feel like they're heard, and, they're not a number. So yeah, I think that's the other thing is make sure that your provider really listens. And, it's okay to go to a consultation and not get something done. All my consultations are, free, answer questions, let them know if you have other questions on other providers, this is what you should be asking. Because patient safety and being comfortable, I think, is the number one thing. So just make sure you're comfortable with whoever you're going to go with, and it doesn't feel like a sales pitch.
Great advice. Great advice. Now, Aimee, throughout your experience, I'm sure that you've worked on some memorable cases or maybe even challenging cases. Is there maybe one story that comes to mind that you can share of just one of those cases and how you were able to get them a great outcome in the end?
This is actually when I was in a clinic, and it was a great learning experience, not only for myself, but actually the original provider. The original provider had done Botox for a patient and did not ask the patient if she had ever had any plastic surgery. And it was more of a mature patient, and she had actually indeed did have a full facelift about 5 years prior. Couldn't see any scars. You wouldn't know. She looked fantastic, but again, everyone is, doing these great things. And she ended up getting a ptosis. And, when you do plastic surgery, things are moved. And depending on she could have had something moved because of an accident, an MBA, she wanted a scar removed or something like that. So she had a ptosis, and it was, mostly just corrective Botox. But it was one of those, and it was a huge learning curve for me because, at that time I wasn't really big about like, have you had plastic surgery? And so I learned a lot. I actually ended up, doing a little bit more of a brow lift to reverse the ptosis, and then also a preppable, like right above the lash line to lift the lid as well. And, the patient was not upset, but she's more like, oh my God, what happened, for my talks? And because she had had talks before, but new provider. And so the provider just didn't really ask, the right questions, which that can save you a lot of trouble. And previous times I had another patient that decided after his laser hair removal to go tanning. That was not the greatest. And, it was, granted, he knew he was not supposed to be out in the sun, but unfortunately it was, triple digits and was going by the pool, and he was like, I'm blistering. And I'm like, you just had laser hair removal. You should not be outside. the
Mm.
sun. So thankfully, knock on wood, I have, not had, a vascular occlusion or anything, of that sort. Of course, we train and know what to do. We have our dissolvers, we have, our emergency kit. This is what you do if, you suspect something like that. But yeah, knock on wood, I haven't had one of those yet.
Hopefully never.
Knock on wood, yes. Hopefully never. Hopefully never.
Okay. So now, Aimee, where do you think the future of aesthetics is going?
I think the future really is preventative over correction. I'm a big, big proponent of, biostimulators, IPLs, anything that can, erase some of the indiscretions of our youth, but then also really prepare us to age well. So, banking collagen, with Sculptra, hyperdilute radius, I'm a huge fan of microneedling, Morpheus, all of those things, because we're going to age, and we age, chronologically, biologically, hormonally, those things. But we really can improve how our skin looks, improve. And again, you could do impeccable Botox and filler, but if the skin overlying that is not in tip top shape, it just doesn't do it justice.
Mm.
So I think that's really, really big. And then, of course, just aging better, with the biohacking that we have available now, I do glutathione shots or glutathione and IVs, to really help with skin, look, brightness. So I think prevention is going to be huge as, we go into, the latter part of the 2020s and, beyond. I'm excited to see what the next big thing is, though, for regenerative medicine and aesthetics.
Okay. And with that in mind, what's your vision for your practice, wellness mobile services?
So currently, we've added now about 4 nurses. 2 of them are strictly mobile. I'm actually working with another doctor right now, so we're going to be adding peptides, stem cells, and exosomes. So stem cells being not only delivered via IV, but also into, say, joints, the neck, the back, and really kind of pushing the envelope in regenerative medicine. So people are living not only longer, but better. Like, again, quality of life.
Mhm.
If, you're in pain and suffering, it's not as fun. I'm still a part-time ER nurse practitioner, and I tell, some of my older patients, I'm like, getting old is not for sissies. It's painful, right?
Mhm.
But if you can really pump some quality into those years, oh my gosh, my lights turned down because I wasn't moving. um, that's really, I think, where we're really pushing the envelope, and I'm looking forward to helping people feel better and look better, because I think that's really the basis of, what we do is we want people to feel better, and if people feel better, they do better and look better too.
Awesome. Well, Aimee, I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at thewellnessmobile.com.
Oh, thank you.
Now, last question is, what does beauty mean to you?
Oh man, so I think beauty for many people is it emanates from people. It's not necessarily looks per se, but something that people exude. Um, you know, people can have beautiful skin, beautiful physiques, that sort of thing. But for me, beauty is eternal, and I think it gets shared with people when you feel really good about yourself.
Mhm.
So, I think there's ways to be beautiful, not just in the aesthetic sense, but in more of a spiritual sense, and it emanates from you. And so I think when you feel better internally, you exude that kind of beautiful energy as well. Um, but I think it goes both ways. And some people are obviously more into the aesthetic piece of beauty. Um, the spiritual side of me thinks, if you feel good and you sleep well and you do these things for yourself and feel beautiful on the inside, it emanates, to other things on the outside too.
Well said. Well, there you have it. Aimee sharing her expertise. So, Aimee, where can people contact you in your business?
You can look us up on Instagram at Wellness Mobile. That's usually the easiest, unless you're going to go to the website. We do TikTok at Wellness Mobile Services too. I'll be the first person to say I don't have dancing Instagram or TikToks every day, usually because I'm with patients. But yeah, we love interacting with people or answering questions on our socials. So feel free to, ask questions about peptides, hormones, or any of your burning aesthetic questions.
Awesome. Well, Aimee, this is great. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Wonderful to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Beauty Talk podcast. Any questions, please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.